Hello everyone and welcome back to a short EP review, and in this video I'm going to review Tarnished Silver by Navicon Torture Technologies. This right here is the grand return of an underground drone and noise project by the name of Navicon Torture Technologies. This is a project that has been going around for lots of years, and it's also been a while, almost a decade, since we've got new material from them. You might also be familiar with another project they have by the name of Theologian, which in this case it's still an ongoing project making releases from time to time, and while Theologian blend many different elements of dark ambient and power electronics, in the case of Navicon Torture Technologies we're mostly talking about a more straightforward sounded approach. The releases are mostly really grim and also quite nihilistic and misanthropic. There was always a tension surrounding their projects, making some of them feel like quite powerful and effective directions of dark ambient and drone music. Now this brand new release over here, after all of those years, marks the 25th year anniversary of the very first project they released in this particular label, ANNIHILVS Power ELECTRONIX, which was a split with Negative 8 back in 2002. This EP over here is only two quite lengthy tracks, the very first going for 15.5 minutes and the second one almost reaching the 10-minute mark, which is actually quite usual length when it comes to tracks of Navicon Torture Technologies. So after all of those years and after a huge hiatus, and while it seemed that the project was gonna be no more, was this project actually really that much worth it? Well, I personally really like this release. I find this to be quite enjoyable in its own way, obviously, but yeah, I actually really like this release. I believe that this is a great execution of noise and dark ambient, with a release that manages to have the dark and grim nature that Navicon Torture Technologies are mostly known of. The very first track, in my opinion, is excellent. I really like the drone direction towards the beginning, the atmosphere to it is really solid, and with the way it's done, it actually kinda reminds me of Solo Lucky for Lilith by Nurse with Wound, which was a drone and dark ambient album that was quite ahead of its time, and I really like the direction out of this track over here. It shares similar elements with its aesthetics, with the sounds that it provides, with its minimalism, just having this melody repeating itself, being straightforward and managing to be quite effective. And while the track seems to just go into this one direction, it doesn't actually last for the entirety of the song, as towards the second half we have a huge shift in sound, becoming much more noisy and more menacing, including more heavy and distorted sounds and completely changing the mood of the song. Then after a certain point where the track has managed to become more intense and more like sort of anxiety inducing, we also get some spoken word sample portions and then some power electronics elements with the vocals, and in those cases it kinda reminds me of like proper goal, which is really cool in my opinion. And as the track progresses, it manages to just become more and more intense, and I just like how the track basically separates itself towards the second half, going into a different direction and changing the mood entirely. Both phases of the song manage to provide some solid atmospheres. I really like the sounds, the minimalism, and it's nice to see this change of direction towards the second half of the song. It is a track that in my opinion is executed really well, and definitely one of my favorite moments when it comes to some more underground stuff that I've heard out of this year. The second track, Stench of a Failure, immediately starts in a much more aggressive and intense tone, and this one is mostly like a noise track that is quite monotone, still providing some elements that are sort of reminiscent of like dark ambient or like death industrial, but despite some really minor change-ups and a few inclusions of sounds here and there, this track is pretty straightforward in its approach. It's mostly just a wall of noise going for almost 10 minutes. And yeah, I can't really say that this track managed to grab my attention as much as the first one. I believe that this one also shares some great elements when it comes to its really dark atmosphere, but this is a much more one-dimensional song. It is repetitive and there is not that much of a development to it, so while I like the directions out of this, it's definitely not that much of a strong and powerful track, as there could have definitely been more to it in this 10-minute mark. But still, with that being said, I'm super glad for this release. It's really nice to see after all of those years such a return of Navicon Torture Technologies with a really solid short project which is straightforward, straight to the point, with some really nice ideas and managing to keep the atmosphere and the elements that have made their sound so special over the years. Definitely one of my highest recommendations when it comes to some more underground releases, going for something really dark and menacing and grim. I'm gonna give Tarnished Silver an 8- out of 10. What's your opinion on this EP? Like it, dislike it, why? And what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.